Hey y'all, hey, it's Tracy time. It's time for a wonderful moment with me, Tracy T, Coach T Rowe. Don't you know? I am going to have a phenomenal live at lunch today. I am going to have with me joining us today, well, not just me, you. We're all going to have Reverend Dr. Rosalyn Nichols, and I'm super excited. She is taking time out of her busy schedule, hey V, to spend a little bit of time with me. So I'm super excited. Hey Cammie. Wait a second, y'all. So I'm super excited that she's going to be on with me today, and we're just going to get a chance to talk and catch up and understand exactly what's happening in her world. For some of you who may not have had an opportunity to be introduced to her, I'll ask some questions, and then feel free as we converse to add your questions. And V, you'll be in and out. I know it's a balancing act, right? You gotta make sure you integrate everything. Hello, Elaine. How are you doing? I am making sure I stay focused and monitor. If you guys see, because I'm doing the horizontal, the landscape view, so that the image is better side by side. So if you see that she has piped in and I don't see her, let me know. But I'm super excited. How are y'all doing? And I have some news while we're waiting for her. I have been, that I've been working from home, and that I have been on assignment working with talent development. And as my full-time permanent position, Tracy T Rowe & Co. is my personal business. And so I am excited that effective July 1, I will have a new assignment that I'll be working on. And so I'll tell you more about that next Monday, and I'll learn more about it Friday and see how it's going to impact live at lunch, if at all. So I'm excited about that. It's always good to start something fresh and new and know that your talents and gifts are being utilized and you're contributing value. So how are y'all doing today? What's going on? Elaine, you gave me a wave. Mwah. Hugs to you guys. Cammie, V, I know you said you'll be in and out. I understand completely. You see the reflection in my glasses. I'm sitting at my desk today, getting some work done. It's a wonderful work Wednesday, and looking forward to connecting with y'all. So what's going on? Okay, so V, while you're here, what are you eating for lunch? If anything, you always seem to have something fantastic for lunch. So I'm excited about that. But y'all think about Reverend Dr. Rosalyn Nichols, and what do you want to know from her? And then here's the other thing I can ask you before she joins us. What do y'all think about these rallies? What in the world? And the numbers that were projected for the rally on Saturday, and the numbers that actually showed on Saturday, and the whole TikTok effort. I want to know what you guys think about that, because I think that was very interesting the way things turned out. I thought it was really interesting. You had late breakfast, so you're eating some fruit. What'd you have for breakfast? I love a good breakfast. You got to do a webinar at 1. Okay. Are you hosting the webinar at 1 o'clock? Elaine? Are you the lead for the webinar? Wow, that should be nice. You'll have to let me know how that goes. Wishing you well. I'm sure it's going to go wonderfully. But how about that? Look at you with a webinar. Okay, I see you. Webinar. Okay, you have McDonald's. McDonald's has some good breakfast options. What's my favorite McDonald's? Gosh, I haven't had McDonald's in a long time. It's amazing how just a few months will shift you out of doing your regular routine, right? Because I've been used to driving to work. That's the one thing I can say that I miss about driving to work, is that I would call and have sip and say time with Sweetie, and then I listened to my audio books in the car. And there she is, my favorite pastor. Let me get her added on here. So she's going to join us, which I'll tell first. All right. Oh, wow. Elaine, it's your first class and you have 633 students. It's going to be great. You're going to do a wonderful job. I just can't wait to hear about it. It's going to be, is it 1 to what? Is it like an hour or 90 minutes? Let me know. I can't wait to hear how that goes. It's going to be great. You're going to be great. You have tons of knowledge to share. So once you get started, it'll be like, it's like riding a bike. So it says, you know, I'm always excited. It's like getting an extra special gift that you look for when someone joins you on live. And so it says it's adding her. So I'm looking forward to that. But that is amazing. 633 students. Wow. Well, if you have been trusted with 633 students, it's because they know that you can do a phenomenal job and something with that. Yes, yes. How are you? Good morning.
I'm kind of, I live in a technology challenged place. Let me turn this upper head light off. Hold on.
She, Pastor Ross says she lives in a technology challenged place, but she is not technologically challenged. She's pretty doggone technologically savvy. I have to tell y'all, she stretched me in with some technology I hadn't heard of before. So I'm happy. Yeah, you look fantastic. How are you feeling today?
No, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. So we have some viewers on. I told them to go ahead and send me some questions while we talk. So if they post them as we go, I'll come back to them during the Q&A. I want to try to stick as closely as I can to the format that I provided you because I know how busy you are. But so first and foremost, yay! I told everybody before you joined, you're my favorite pastor. I'm not just saying that because you're my pastor.
Favorite, Tracy.
See how safe that was? VJ is saying, hey, okay, so we're going to dig in. There are several things that I want to cover with you today, and so that people will benefit. I've known you because you were born and raised here in the city. You've gone to school here. You have, long-term relationships with a lot of other Memphians. So many people know kind of the power of Roz and that you're dynamic and you have a very firm grasp on what's happening in the community. You're a civic leader. They know you're a pastor. But one of the things I don't think that people know about is that you also have a business. And I want you to talk a little bit about that.
So to get to the business that I have outside of the business of Freedom's Chapel Christian Church, before the church was planted, I had a nonprofit 501c3 called A More Excellent Way, and I'm trying to find my spot in my seat, and we dealt in the issue of domestic and relationship violence, and so we did that for a little over a decade in focusing. So a lot of people, I wear a lot of hats throughout the city in terms of how people intersect with me. And so the nonprofit was my first love. Freedom's Chapel is my second love. And then late 2018, 2017, 2018, as I was pivoting out of my work with Memphis Theological Seminary, I felt called back into extending an arm. By the time I put a pin in my nonprofit work with A Way, there was such a thing as social entrepreneurship. It was a new language that people were using. And what always fascinated me was a friend, a colleague I met at a workshop who had figured out how to do a for-profit and a nonprofit together, one feeding and forming the other, so that nonprofits would not depend solely on grants and outside donations and those kind of things. So I looked at what my gifts and abilities were and formed A More Excellent Way LLC. And I am a stabilizer. My LLC focuses on stabilizing, providing administrative processes and procedures for small and large businesses, new businesses, businesses that have the gift of being able to walk in and walk alongside of a business owner and see where they want to go and help them stabilize it. My first major contract was with Claiborne Temple, and I walked in and helped to stabilize that entity so that the visionary leadership would have a platform to fly off. You need a runway. The plane has to have a runway and has to have a solid runway. So I bring those gifts and abilities in that. So we are a stabilizing organization. Mm-hmm.
And then with Claiborne Temple, tell us more about what the current status is and what the vision is with Claiborne Temple, because that's profound work, not just for the city, but for the historical perspective for the world. It really is. It's a monument.
So I had the privilege of serving at Claiborne Temple for a little over 18 months. They closed in December of 2019 as they began the process of restoration of the building, and had the privilege of walking through until that point. And yes, it was an opportunity of a lifetime to stand in the space where it is said, and I agree with it, someone on the Sacred Trust team said that Claiborne Temple is ground zero for civil rights, not only in Memphis, but in the nation, because you could not get to, there would be no Lorraine Motel, there would be no significance of Mason Temple had it not been for Claiborne Temple. And so that is still true today. And it's so much history. Teenager who was killed by the police in the March 28th riot, his services were held there. James Lawson, Dr. King, all of the strategy work, Dr. Henry Logan Starks pastored at Claiborne Temple. And outside of its civil rights legacy, it has a rich and deep legacy in the AME church and how it got to be. And even beyond that, it has, the building itself has a significance in that it was the home of Second Presbyterian that's now out on Poplar. And Second Presbyterian, of course, as the neighborhood ground up, then people moved out. And so Second Pres moved out. And there is even relationship in the AME church between Avery Chapel, AME church that was also downtown, and the relationship between Avery and Claiborne. So Memphis has rich history, and Claiborne Temple is a part of that broad, rich history. And so I'm very grateful that that it has built the momentum to be restored.
You also have a phenomenal opportunity in making history with Micah Memphis. We have had the pleasure of having Janice Johnson-Lee on from Micah and Reverend Lloyd on, that's, you know, actively engaged in Micah. And so you don't like the word founding. I know you like the word organizing instead. So tell us about what your contributions are with Micah and how Micah can help with where we are now.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, Tracy. And let me just give clarification when you talk about founding. So I don't mind you talking about me as a founding partner of Micah. I don't say that I am the founding pastor of Freedom's Chapel, and people who know me for a very, very long time know that my statement is Jesus founded the church, and I am simply a district manager. So I don't call myself the founder of Freedom's Chapel. However, I am proud to have been a founding partner in Micah. So in 2016, there was an email that came to a number of us, including a number of disciple congregations, AME pastors, that came from Nashville. So there's an organization called NOAH, Nashville Organized for Action and Hope. And they reached out to us, Edward Thompson, Judy Cummings, Dr. Judy Cummings, other leadership of NOAH said to a number of us in Memphis, you all should organize something in Memphis similar to what NOAH is done. And the caveat at the time, there were a number of things that were profound. The caveat at the time was the opportunity to do coalition building across the state of Tennessee and partnering on a number of issues that were significant to Black and brown people across the state in a predominantly red state that we hoped at least to begin to show a little blue, a little purple in. So that was in October. Our first call was October of 2016. The second meeting, that was at the historic St. James AME Church, where Dr. Starks was a pastor there, and Reverend Walter Henry is currently the pastor. Our first meeting, we met our trusted leader with the Gamaliel Foundation, Greg, and he called us together. There were probably about 7 to 8 of us in the room. Mississippi Boulevard was in the room, represented in the room, AME pastor, and then the Moors, who were just new to Memphis and joining St. Andrew. And it was a call to action. It was a call to action that was unique also because Greg's interest was not in clergy leadership, but in how clergy leadership could empower members to become their own advocates. That was what captured my attention. Stacy Spencer and a number of us had been working on justice issues prior to this, but this gave us an organized way to convene ourselves. And the traction that we got was whenever Greg would walk out the room, he would say, how many people you gonna bring at the next meeting? And not casually, like, how many people you gonna bring in the next meeting? And he was an irritant. He knows this about himself, so I'm not talking out of school. And so the next meeting was at St. Andrew AME Church with the Moores as leadership. Our numbers grew. The third meeting was, and that second meeting was historical because it was the day after the election, the 2016 election. We were all, the wind was knocked out of all of us. We walked in the meeting. Quite honestly, I walked in for the first time in my life frightened to live in my nation. I was not certain what had happened. And again, Greg ate us alive. Like, what are you doing? You can't do this work while you're in the room. So it pissed me off so badly when they asked, and there were only a few women in the room even at that time, that meeting going to be had pissed me off so badly until I said it'll be at Freedom's Chapel. And so the third meeting in December was there. We had a monumental turnout. We had Muslims, Christians, Jews, humanists, and one gentleman who was an atheist said, can I be a part of MICA? We were looking at unions and just a wide fabric of Memphis. And that was really very fascinating to me. I had been a part of clergy leadership, and with all love for my clergy colleagues, if a funeral jumps off and something pulls us, our attention span is gone. This MICA is now in its fourth year, organized officially in 2017. And what makes it work for me is the foundation of the Gamaliel training and principles and philosophy of community organizing. And that really, it is not about us as the leaders. Our role is to hand this work back to the people who are greatly impacted. So yes, Freedom's Chapel was among the first congregations to join and organize, and I'm very proud to have sat in a room with Greg to decide who our first leaders were. And those first leaders were the Reverend Dr. Stacy Lynn Spencer, New Direction, and Rabbi Katie Bowman of Temple Israel. And yeah, and that's how we started.
And right now, MICA Memphis is focused on 3 specific pillars. Tell us more about those.
Lord, I hope I can remember them exactly correctly. So intercultural and immigration. Everything we do revolves around equity. Intercultural and immigration equity. We named that, and even as we speak, they're in the process of revisiting what that name is, because we did not want to use the broad term of racism because it just is too broad. So, and it tends to get narrowed down in ways that are not helpful. So we chose that name. The other thing was that in 2017, when that became our pillar, we were also dealing with children and immigration and children being housed behind prison gates and walls. And so it was a very passionate, I was very excited at the time that we chose that. The second one is education equity and how we fund education in the city, and then economic equity, how we provide access to the portion of our community that does not have a living wage, has no job security, has no public transportation to get to jobs. So those are our, am I leaving anything out, Tracy? I may be. Equity, education.
Yeah, well,
equity.
Under that umbrella, housing and voters registration, voters' rights and voters' equity.
Those are action items.
Not
For
pillars.
instance, integration in our intercultural and immigration equity, it really revolves around criminal justice. So we've been doing work for the last 3 years significantly around both the Shelby County Division of Correction and the Memphis Police Department, and our justice, our criminal justice, even in meeting regularly with the district attorney. So yes, and we got to those pillars through our work as a organization where we nailed down, I love our process. Everybody gets a voice, everybody gets equal vote, and then we narrowed them down to these as issues that are critical to us in Memphis.
It was a phenomenal process, so well structured, and everyone had an opportunity to have their voice heard. And it was broad community participation, which is one of the things I love about Micah Memphis. I have to tell you, one of the things that I experienced from work yesterday Micah Memphis came up, was that our team, our entire organization under my VP, had a listening circle, and it was about what's happening in the community and what's happening in our nation with as my sister calls, the Floyd Revolution. And our team is very diverse, but it's kind of one of those things where we've assimilated ourselves, the people of color have assimilated ourselves into what the defaulted norm is. And we had, for the first time in the history of my being an employee at the company, an opportunity for the people of color to share some of the experiences that they had, just in their lifetime, about how they have been affected by any kind of biases, prejudices, being followed, pulled over unnecessarily, searched, and the like. And I even shared that while at work, I was called the help. And so it was very moving to have that. And one of the questions that we have on here, I think Elaine asked, was, where is your heart? I want to make sure that I get her question right. Where is your heart in today's climate?
I hesitate and pause because, quite honestly, Tracy, my heart is probably all over the place. I guess at the end of the day, if I have to narrow it down, what pushes me and what catches me is that I believe that we have a window right now. I believe I really strongly agree with Dr. King, who offered the quote that the moral arc of the universe always bends toward good. But I also know very well that in the bend of the arc is a lot of hell, and that in the middle of the hell, there are windows that you get to advance to the next portion of that arc toward good. So you work toward good, knowing that you got to walk through the darkness. So I think that we have a window. And if we don't make the most of this window at the level of 1964 legislation, and the HIV and AIDS epidemic that moved us toward dealing with people in whose lifestyles were different from ours, and with all, I hope I say that as the respectful way that I intend. But we have these moments in history where we as human beings are called upon to move the dial down the street. And if we don't, woe is to us. So I look at what catches me is I look at my cousin Christopher, our lead organizer, Reverend Ayana, just had a new baby. And I look at those children and I don't want them. I am 56 years old, and I realize I have stood at podiums talking about justice issues since before I was ordained, and I come out of a whole legacy of justice work. And I would love for, when I'm gone, for Nia to be able to stand up and remember what was, but what is not, because of what we did in this moment in time. And so my heart is at the level of the children, right? Is where life will intentionally be different. We all felt that when Obama was elected, right? There were people who never thought they'd live in a lifetime to see that. And it was a critical moment. And we are at another critical moment in the move. And so that may be too broad for some folks, but that's where my heart is. I look at these babies and I don't want them to have to stand at podiums and holler and scream about death and life. Yeah.
Right. How do we do that? Do we, I've been really pressing the issue of voting. Aside from voting, how do we take, as Pastor Law just posted, we can't waste the crisis, pandemic, and racial injustice. How do we take advantage of that? How do we make sure we're getting this right in this window? What do we do? What do you suggest?
Yeah, I think people get overwhelmed and they think if they don't do something huge, that they don't get a chance to do anything. So the critical response to me for that is, it seems kind of cliche, but you get in where you fit in. So everybody, I was just having a conversation just yesterday with someone who is working closer to one of our challenges in our criminal justice reform, who has a greater relationship with some of our folks that we're actually calling into accountability. And we went back and forth because there are times when she feels like she is, too close to it, and people don't, they see her relationship and believe that she's already compromised. And we talked about how somebody's got to go. Somebody's got to be Joseph. You got to go in the house of the king and get the resources to be able to feed the nation. Somebody's got to be Esther. You got to go in there and put your life on the line while the rest of us are outside praying and fasting or marching right. So voting actually is low-hanging fruit. That ought not even have, we ought not even have to remind people to do that. I get it, but we ought not have to, right? So if nothing else, if you know, and it's not that you can say, I vote. No, beloved of God. This season, you got to haul some others to the polls. And you have to remember that you're voting for men and women who, because of our criminal justice system, do not have access, so they need to vote. So yeah, you need to vote, and you need to put some folks in the cars. Our people made strides because not only did they get the vote out, but they put people in buses and cars and said, yeah, I'll take you whether you're not. So that's one. The other thing is, and so you can be involved in organizations, right? Find an organization that's doing something. Black Lives Matter is doing work. Up the Vote is doing work. Citizens, concerned citizens. Outside of Micah, there are many organizations that you can, if you cannot march. There were people during the 50s and 60s, they never marched, but they had money to bail folks out of jail. So you could fund something, and your $5 will make a difference. You can offer some resources that support what they're doing. And let's say you can't do none of that. But if you have sincerely, not this kind of, yeah, I'm praying for you, but no, if you have the power of prayer that every morning you make the commitment that you're going to pray over this justice work, and you're going to corral 2 or 3 gathered to do that work, then that is significant. And last but not least, in your places where you go to work, if you are willing to have these courageous conversations and not just duck your head and try to plow through another day, wake up and find somebody, right, that you'll have a real for real conversation with, then you have moved the dial, right? Talk to your children, talk to your grandchildren, have these conversations, because we will look back. And I have a friend, I'm going to do a whole sermon on this, but I have a dear friend whose daughter said to her, I've told this story a million times, and it's still a story. So her daughter said to her, daughter was I don't know, first, second grader, and she said, Mama, when you were a slave, did you run away or did you wait for them to let you go? I love that story on so many levels. So when my beloved friend told me the story, she was like, I don't even know where to start. When I was a slave, first of all, right? Now, children don't know. Abraham Lincoln is yesterday. Martin Luther King is Abraham Lincoln is slavery, right? So many times, Mama. Okay, so the first profound moment is when you were a slave. So now you got to deal with that. But the more profound moment was, did you wait on them to let you go, or did you run away? And so somebody needs to be able to ask yourself, in the next 20 years, where will you have landed in this work? Will you have just waited on justice reform, right? Or can you say you did something to expedite your freedom? That's it.
That's good. That's good.
It's not my story.
That's good. That's interesting, though, that she thought that her mom was a slave.
Well, children have no reference. So they have no reference for time. And so she went to school and they were talking about,
they were talking about it.
My mama might have.
I guess the other part of looking at it, at least they were talking about it.
Yeah,
right?
Well,
I mean, that's
right.
That's something that at least they were talking about it. And speaking of talking, from Micah Memphis, I know that you said that Micah Memphis does a great job of holding the local government and officials accountable. Mayor Strickland, Mayor Strickland is now in communication with other people, but not Micah Memphis. How do we move forward if we don't get a seat at the table with the people who are in the position to make the law?
Well, since subsequent to that, there have been other gatherings of which there were some representation from Micah included. So there was some redress to that, I guess you could say. But Tracy, we won't do this work waiting on somebody to give us a seat at the table. That is why. All of the activist community have a place to hold our elected officials accountable, and we hold them accountable at the end of the day by what we do at the ballot box. So we ain't got to be invited to nobody's table. We ain't got to sit at no table. You got to know that you got a city, that in the city and county, every citizen needs to know how much representation you have, right? So in the county commission, you have a county commissioner that serves you. In the city council, you got an at-large and a representative. So in just that alone, you got 3 folks. I may be missing somebody. Why do I feel I am? But you have at least 3 folks that should be representing your voice, your concerns, your issues. On the city council, you have 9 Democrats, 8 African Americans. They need 7 votes. Hear me. They need 7 votes to advance anything. So you got enough African American representation to get the advance. Here's let me give you something. So right now there's a concern related to where our police come from. Residency is the issue on the table. So I would advise you even today to do a little research on what happens. Your Memphis Police Department would like to extend residency so that they can reach outside of the city in order to add to their numbers. Sounds innocent enough, but what happens when your officers are 50 miles outside of the city of Memphis? You just need to have a conversation with yourself. I don't need to tell you what you need to think. You just need to ask yourself, what happens when we are able to elect or to hire out 50 miles outside? Okay, whatever your opinion is, the referendum will land on your next election ballot based off of what your city council do on July 7th with their meeting. So if you are a citizen and you do not want that referendum on the ballot, then what you need to do is notify, did you hear me? There are 9 Democrats. There are 8 African Americans. You need 7 votes. You need to talk to those who represent you and tell them what you feel. My last comment on that is I sat in a room, it's been 20 years ago. The chair of the Republican Senate or whatever up there in Nashville at the time was a woman. And she sat in a room at Methodist Hospital of Clergy. They love to bring clergy in. They think we still have some influence. And said to us, you all think that that we are leaders. Now, she was the chair of the House at the time. She said, you all think of us as leaders. She said, really, we are followers. And we follow the loudest voice in the room, right? So in other words, every time African Americans lean back and say, well, white folks gonna do what they wanna do, or, well, they ain't gonna listen to us. Every time we buy into that narrative, the loudest voice in the room wins. So, I mean, just be loud. What they gonna do? So that's an action item that your listeners can do right now. And if they need, all you gotta do is Google representatives of Memphis City Council. And then you can ask for a copy of the, as a matter of fact, I'll send it to you, Trace, the copy of the referendum. Read the referendum, do a little work. Memphis Police makes $76,000 a year, plus whatever benefits. That's average, right? You can check it. You don't have to go by me. We keep talking about adding more police to address the crime. We ain't resolved it yet. We got Sheriff's Department and we got Memphis Police Department, and we still got crime. And what does it mean for your officers to live 50 miles outside of the city where they don't pay taxes, they don't pay payroll, they're not invested in the community that they are called to serve?
Mm-hmm.
But while the fear mongers will let you say, well, we can't get it done if we don't have enough officers, then you need to ask another question, right? You need to
Right.
there's
That's
another
good.
question to ask, right? Okay, I gave you more than you asked for.
Yeah, that's good. No, that's awesome. I knew who I asked to be on Live at Lunch. I do want to talk about your second love because, okay, we talked about voting in the census. We know how important both of those, like you said, low hanging fruit. So let me just say right here for the record, if you have not completed your census for 2020, do it today. Go online and just complete
Very
that.
easy.
That has a huge impact on what happens in our community. Even though,
Yeah.
people don't want the white man to know what's in their business and who in your house and all that foolishness. We need the census to be completed.
Yeah.
Okay, I said that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, let's talk about the importance of Sabbath, because you are a Sabbath girl.
In 2017, we all grew up hearing the word Sabbath. I believe most of us grew up. Sunday was considered Sabbath, right? And for many of us, Sunday was sacred day, but it was family day. It wasn't my house. I grew up, and every Sunday we had the same routine. My mother would wake up. We'd listen to the Back to God Hour with Maxie Dunham, Christ United Methodist Church, and then my mother would listen to the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. I'd hear Jesus, Joy of Man's Desire. And then she would put on either James Cleveland or Aretha Franklin, and we get ready to go to church. We went to Metropolitan Baptist Church, church of my baptism, and by 12:35, we would service started at 11. By 12:35, we were on the parking lot telling everybody bye, head to my grandmother's house. And that was Sunday dinner. That's my life, right? That was the routine. And it anchored me and shaped me. But it also was my understanding of Sabbath. So when I was in seminary, my beloved rabbi, Micah, taught that Sabbath is God rested, and that the profoundness is that God leaned back from God's self and let everything be just function on its own, right? That God leaned back from God's own power to allow the universe to believe and trust that it's going to be all right. And that God, according to the sacred text, said, this 6 days you will labor, do everything you do, and on the seventh day you're going to rest. And the rest is not self-care rest. The rest is not, I'm going to go catch up on my clothes washing. The rest is to separate yourself from everything that you identify as your person. And the gift that you give God is to do nothing. My latest thing is to make yourself useless for God. 2017, I came out of Easter. If I had been any more exhausted, I realized now it had been 10 years from the time my mother joined the Great Cloud of Witnesses. My aunt joined, several critical, members of Freedom's Chapel all joined the Great Cloud. Then we had the audacity to move a church from 4,800 square feet to 15,000. When Easter came in 2017, Tracy, I was so far past empty. I did not care. I just knew I got to take a break. My friend Cosette Rogers Garrett had already introduced us to Sabbath practice, and I had started reading, but I had not started practicing. So I walked away from the church and spent time and began my practice of Sabbath. And so, yes, and I kind of Goldilocks my practice. So from sunset Thursday to sunset Friday is my sacred holy time. And every week, one of our members who teaches yoga, Jackie, mentioned one day, she did two things. She handed me a book called The Rest of God by Mark Buchanan, but she also in her yoga teaching would always talk about setting the intention. So I set my intention during that time to not be who I am every other day of the week, and to work to really honor that. And it really is my soul salvation. I invite and encourage other people. I spend 25 hours every week, and by the grace of God and the support of the people in my village, I have been able to honor that since 2017. And yeah, so I kind of put some stuff out there every now and then to help people to understand it. But it's really, it's God's, I tell people it's a commandment, people who follow God. Muslim, Christian, Jew, people who follow Jesus, and who believe in the Bible have to wrestle with the fact that it's a commandment. It's not a suggestion. Somebody once said to me, well, Ross, I always thought the Bible was just kind of, a lot of really good suggestions. It's like, no, you ain't got no suggestions, beloved of God. This. Or, somebody once said to me, this book is, I think of this book like I think of every other book. And I was like, and I'm really open. I mean, anybody who knows me know we go in with scripture. I love it. Let's wrestle with it. I ain't got to have no, but the Bible is clear, and Jesus is clear, and God is clear. It is a commandment, not a suggestion. And the command is, this is what gets me every time. The command is not what you do, it's what you don't do. Don't do nothing. I'm going to say my last thing, then I'm done with this Sabbath. But I do think that what people don't understand when I talk about Sabbath is they immediately go to self-care. Immediately. Yeah, girl, you got to take care of yourself. You better take care. You better put yourself first. And I have to say, I take vacation. I take mental health days. I take, clean my house days. Sabbath is not that. Sabbath is about where God rests in your world and your life. It's about honoring God and God's commandments. Okay. Did that answer? Yeah.
That was great. And you go live as you're going into Sabbath to have an opportunity to share with people where you've been, because unlike most people who start the week thinking I need to start with rest, it's literally the reverse of that for you with Sabbath, that you're inviting us to what is the beginning of your week. Is that right?
That is correct. The week flows out of Sabbath and not the other way around. Most of us live for the weekend. We're the OJs, Monday through Friday, I'm dead on my feet. Most of the time, too tired to eat. But as soon as Saturday rolls around, right? And so we live for Saturday. We live for the end. And that for me is the difference between Kairos and Chronos. So Kairos is time as gift, not possession. And when you live just enough for the weekend, then you just are plowing through just to get to, but you're never really replenished, right? And particularly in 2020, not just the pandemic, but we have gotten to a point where Saturday is I got to catch up on what I didn't get done Monday through Friday. And God help you on Sunday, Pastor, I'm sorry, I was trying to get to church, but I was just so tired. And then your children got all kind of crap after service, and you just don't have any real down time. And so Sabbath is about, I begin with God, and everything that I do flows out of that. And how I begin with God is resting in God and focusing on God. Now, you do that in a lot of ways. So my Sabbath, sometimes I literally sit outside and watch the birds, or I may read something. When I first started, I would play jacks on the floor in my house, or I would color, because you have to begin to shift and disconnect, because it's very easy for me to start thinking about what I got to get done. And if I got a window where ain't nobody bothering me, I
And then I tell you what, your internet better not be frozen right now, because it's been doing great. We just gonna keep talking. So you guys, while we're waiting for the internet to unthaw, what questions do you have for Reverend Roz? She's shared a wealth of information, and I'm going to ask about what's her second love last, and hopefully we'll get her input about the all things life is following through. And I'm going to reconnect her. Hold on, y'all. And her faith. And so if you have questions for her, because we're running long, it's just been so good. It's a wealth of information. She's so learned and so dynamic. I want to afford the opportunity, if you have any other questions, to ask her before we wrap. And my last question for her will be about Freedom's Chapel Christian Church. And hey, Chalmers, and thank you all for joining us. Patricia Bates, Thompson, and Eric Turner, Pastor Law, Winslow, Laverne, Frank D, love you. Pastor Law, you've had some fantastic comments. Hey, April, Derek, Dewana. Hey, Brenda K, Myra, Christy. Thank you all so much for joining me today for Live and Lunch. I'm adding her now, so hopefully her connection will permit for us to wrap up. It's one of these fantastic things we have with the internet. It's so dynamic and wonderful when it works, and it's such a bummer when it stops working. And it's always the case that right when they're going to say something that's so profound that you want to capture them, and that doggone internet freezes up. And so I'm attempting to add her again so that we can and she's persistent enough that she won't stop trying to be added, so that's the good thing. But so what questions do you all have for Reverend Roz as we wait for her to connect? Hey sister, how you doing? Derek, I can't believe you didn't call me Tracy May. Jackie, I have told everybody who is listening that's talking about the time we're going through now, I call it the Floyd Revolution, thanks to you. I always give you credit. And this conversation has been amazing, and I hope that you've enjoyed it. Y'all give me a thumbs up if you've enjoyed this Live at Lunch with Reverend Roz. And then ask a question. Let me know what you want to know based on what you've heard her say, and I'll ask her. As you saw, I just asked Elaine's question for her, so let me know, and hopefully we can get her on before we wrap. So I am absolutely delighted to tell you that on Friday on Live at Lunch, I will have Senator Katrina Robinson joining me. You guys, this has been like the Black Girls Rock Week for real. Pastor Roz is amazing, and Katrina Robinson is doing some phenomenal work in her role. And yeah, Elaine, you have to get ready for your webinar at 1 o'clock with your 633 students. It's so impressive. I'm hoping that that if you have questions, because you know they're dynamic women that are powerful and influential in the community, but on very different ends of the spectrum, right? So with Pastor Law, she's on and communicating. She was also integral in the process of founding and establishing Micah Memphis. So thank you. She's now moved on to Texas, but just amazing, amazing. Love you, love you, love you, Pastor Law, and miss you. Hope you are well with your sweet grandbabies. And then, hey, Donette Rowe, how are you? Thank you for joining me. I am going to, let's see. She is coming back on. She did the reverse and is trying to get to me, so that's good. Let's see, I can add her. We want her on. I'm not gonna give up because I know that hey Stephanie, how are you doing? While I'm adding Pastor Roz, I want you to know that Stephanie is a paparazzi queen, and she is on Wednesdays live. She's on Wednesdays live and is a phenomenal paparazzi representative. I can't think of what your you just won an award, didn't you, Stephanie? You can tell us what that is. And I am determined, y'all. Hold on, don't leave me. I'm gonna do it like this because she is literally trying to connect with me and I am trying to connect with her. I will not be outdone. Let's try this. 15th time is the charm. How about that? Hey, Edmund. I will not be outdone. I will survive. Okay, now there she is. So I'm going to see if I can add her. Oh, nope, that's not what I wanted to do. Hold on, y'all. Let me add her. She came on and said, sorry, guys. And I think I did something retarded. I did invite her. Let's see. Can y'all give anybody no feedback? Facebook folks, can y'all give them some feedback and let them know that we need them to. Hey, Linda Shop. Yes. I know. Hold on, y'all. This is the last part of the live, and I am determined. I'm not having this. This is unacceptable. AT&T, I need y'all to get it together, okay? It's just as simple as that. This is an AT&T thing. Ashley, you did not miss. We're trying to get Pastor Roz reconnected. So I'll get her connected back on to finish. And it's been really good. I just want you to know that. It's been really good. All right, so what other questions do you have for Pastor Roz? I am going to add and what's your greatest takeaway while I'm adding? What's been your greatest takeaway from what you heard today? Has it been about you needing to get involved? Has it been that? Because that's really important for us to, hold on, y'all, for us to understand. For us to fully understand that it's incumbent upon all of us, right, to make what we want to see happen. So I want to know from you, what are your thoughts? I've invited her. What are your thoughts? Hey, Devin. Yes, her explanation of Sabbath. Oh my gosh, yes. And it's different from what people expect when they hear about Sabbath, because you think, oh yeah, I just need to take a break, and that's not what that is, right? I'm looking down because I am connecting on my phone. Y'all, hold on a second. I'm just going to call her and we're going to finish like that. How about that? There's always more than one way, I tell you. So you're going to hear me talking to her, and that's what we're going to do. I'm going to keep this real simple, and we're going to go that way. How about that? There's always more than one way. Because I think I did something goofy too. But we're going to get this thing worked out. And then we going to, let's see.
Hello.
Let's go into voicemail. All right. I'm going to tell her to answer her phone. What else? Her explanation of Sabbath. Yes. Hey, Pamela Pugh, Dr. Pugh. How are you? So we're on the heels of a fantastic live at lunch. And I want you to know that we have covered this has been a full live at lunch. We've talked about her because she wears many hats. Reverend Dr. Rosalyn Nichols wears many hats. Most people know her as a pastor. She's more than a pastor. She's an activist. She's a teacher. She is a business owner. She is absolutely an advocate in the community. And just dynamic. And so she talked about Sabbath and the importance of having Sabbath, and that you can start your week with Sabbath, as opposed to how some people think that's the end of the week. That she said, no, we need to make sure we start the week with Sabbath. And so that's really important. And let's see. Let me see if I do this. Oh, she's just sent me a message saying she's trying to call me. So, I'm going to try her again and see if I can get her. We will not let technology win. We rule technology. Technology does not rule us. So let's see. Can you guys hear my phone?
Ooh, Jesus.
I know, right?
It's been a journey.
I told everybody on live, we will not be outdone. So I'm still live, and everyone's hanging because they were enjoying you so much. So I had one final question for you. I want to see if people can hear you through the speakerphone. And everyone is saying that they are enjoying this. We got thumbs up on your live at lunch. So of course, I didn't have any doubt or questions about that. But I wanted to finish with one final question. And I've asked the viewers if they have a question for you as well. So I'll ask the question and then we'll wrap unless anyone has a question in addition to this final one. We talked about your first love being away, A More Excellent Way, and then your second love was Freedom's Chapel. So I wanted to finish with Freedom's Chapel and tell us or share with the viewers what the philosophy is for Freedom's Chapel. What is our mission?
Okay, so not philosophy, but theology. The theology of Freedom's Chapel is the theology of Jesus, and I'm just not broad stroking it, but the anchor of our understanding is, first of all, whom the Son sets free is free indeed. So living free in Christ gives you the the liberty to live, but the responsibility to serve. And the two grounding scriptures that shape and inform how Freedom's Chapel seeks to do ministry is exactly what Jesus said. Love God with all that you have and to love your neighbor as you love yourself. And that everything else that you do hangs on those two. And that really and truly, if you just make that is harder than what it sounds, right? To love God with all that you have means that you got to process and think about daily, not just dial out and say, am I really giving God my best? I was thinking about that this morning as I was walking my dog, what does it really mean to love God with my mind, my soul, and my strength? My mind, my body, my soul, and my strength. And then the other one is as hard, is to love my neighbor as myself. This afternoon, this evening, I'll be on a virtual vacation Bible school with the church of my baptism. Their new pastor invited me to do a conversation about how do you love your neighbor when you're separated, social distancing, right? And it's easy when your neighbor is somebody you like. Jesus says that's not really the measure by which you do that. And so what we work to do at Freedom's Chapel is to be neighborly, if you will, to kind of use that as a tongue, kind of like an easy way to wrap your brain around it. But when we say all are welcome, every church says that. Mm-hmm. But we work intentionally to live that out loud, and it's not always easy in a theologically conservative community, both black and white. We already have several things that kind of challenge that. We are led by an African-American woman, a single African-American woman, who has a congregation that where there are no closets. So we have people who have overcome addictions. We have people who have lived through divorce. We have people who are LGBTQ. We have people who have been felons. We just have the fabric of a community, but we seek to try to grow in love and all of that. So that's who we are at Freedom's Chapel. Yeah, right. And in a nutshell.
And the fact that we really live and believe that theology, the what anchors us, I think is what sets Freedom's Chapel apart. Talk a little bit about the name, because I think some people get that confused, and I think this would be a great point and opportunity of clarification on Freedom's Chapel.
I was at a prayer meeting on Tuesday night at Metropolitan Baptist Church during Black History Month. It had to have been either 2001 February, and I had a Greek name. I can't even remember what it was. So, koinonia is a Greek word that means fellowship. So I had this Greek name that, as I was processing and thinking about organizing a congregation and wrestling with it, and the late Bishop Betty Austin, I called her, and I was talking to the three women that I talked to about organizing a church. And when I got the bishop on the phone and gave her this name, and she said, "Baby, people got to be able to pronounce the church they go to." because I could get really scholarly sometimes. So I was like, this is Greek, and we go all learn Greek, and it's like, baby, people got to know, they got to be able to pronounce the name of the church they go to. So I'm in prayer meeting one night, and it was Black History Month, and we were singing "Oh Freedom, Oh Freedom, Oh Freedom." Yeah, and so that clicked. Freedom is where we are. We're trying to live fully free, and it's called freedom, apostrophe S, because we believe that our freedom is in Christ, that Jesus gives us our freedom. And so the place where we worship is actually his place, his space, and so that's the possession, that is the freedom that Jesus provides, and he is the embodiment of freedom. So there's freedoms, and it's chapel because we didn't want to be a cathedral, nothing wrong with that, but the intimacy that's required to work out your freedom is one-to-one. So we are intentionally intimate, and we will always, our big dream was to have a congregation of about 300-400. When we got to about 400, we plant somebody else that would have a small enough congregation where the pastor could put his or her hands on people and where people could have real intimate conversations and relationships. That's how we got our name, Freedom's Chapel Christian Church. We're disciples of Christ. I'm ordained in the DOC under Dr. Alvin O'Neill Jackson did my ordination, and so yeah, so and as a disciple congregation, we don't have doctrines, we have an affirmation, and we live into that affirmation.
No one else had questions. So now, is there anything that you wanted to tell the viewers that I did not ask you?
No, you kind of covered the wealth of my life. I guess the only thing else I would say is that I am thankful to have been born and raised at the time that I was born and raised. I am still a Memphian, and I got up this morning and made the determination that I will remain so. And that might say, well, we didn't know you would think about leaving. I don't know that I was intentionally thinking about it, but I know that the powers that be at this time try to drive us all out of both our homes, our communities, and ultimately out of this nation. And so I guess I'm thankful for the people that raised me, the village that shaped me, and I'm committed to being that for others going forward. Yeah,
that's good. That's good. Well, you have been that for so many people, and it's a gift for me to be one of the sheep that you shepherd. I know that I'm a challenging sheep. So
You're not a challenging sheep.
I create, as you all know who are watching me now, imagine being my pastor, and that just makes her all the more special, doesn't it?
You're not challenging. You're not a challenging sheep. No. As long as people want to grow, I'm good.
Yes, and that is my pursuit. I'm in pursuit of growth. Well, I would be remiss if I covered all of this and didn't tell you all how you can have the opportunity to be welcomed, and not just welcome, but wanted with us at Freedom's Chapel Christian Church. We are practicing safe first, and we are doing virtual Hour of Power on Sundays at 9 a.m. You can go to the Freedom's Chapel Christian Church DOC Facebook page and view us. And then if you are unable to locate that, first of all, contact me, because I'll need to know why you can't see it. But then I also want you to know that I do a watch party from my personal page, and there are several other ministry partners in Freedom's Chapel who do that. We would love for you to participate and fellowship and worship with us, because we have an amazing service and a wonderful hour of power. All right, Pastor Roz, that's it. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tracy, for pushing through.
Yes, absolutely. I wanted to have everyone benefit from the wealth of your knowledge, and I appreciate you taking time to be with me today. I know how busy you are.
Well, we're all busy, but I'm honored.
Thank you. Love you.
Love you too.
All righty. Bye-bye.
I'm headed to a Micah meeting.
Oh, good. Give him. Put a fist up for me. I'm all in.
All right. Be blessed.
All right.
Everybody take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, good people. We have had a wonderful, oh my gosh, like this has been one of the most robust live at lunch we've had. It was the entire lunch too. So I appreciate for those of you that stuck with me. We overcame the technology issue. I absolutely was determined to do that. Thank you all so much for participating, and make sure that you contact and stay in connection with me this week, because I'll be on tomorrow for Thirsty Thursdays, and we are going to have another dynamic session on Friday with Senator Katrina Robinson. You don't want to miss that. So it's my week of Black girls rock, and of course we do, but so does everyone, and so do you. So here's my cyber hug. You matter to me. I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. And make every day amazing, and above all else, live like it's a gift, because it truly is. I hope your Wednesday is wonderful. Mwah. See you on Thursday, and for sure, Friday. Bye.